It's going great, had a 3-day weekend and we did a little bowling, a whole bunch of family stuff, so that was good. And thankfully, I don't know if this has happened, you live in New York now, right? You moved?
Yeah, I'm right out. I'm in between Philly and New York, basically. I'm going
Oh,
back
very
and forth.
exciting.
Yeah.
Well, I know we've had, especially with school age children, like the craziest cold and flu season. And so I feel like finally, when you say, how was my week? Oh, it's great because everybody's healthy at last. It's like finally no more flu, no more cold. And just as I say that, I'm sure my son will bring something home to us. But week's been
It's
good. And you, how have you been?
good, 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 good. Busy, busy, running around. We just got back from Tequila. We were down in
Ooh.
Mexico for 10 days. My wife does spirits brand marketing and brand strategy. So she had a group that had an event with one of the Real Housewives of New Jersey. I don't know if you watch this show at all,
You'll
but
laugh. My husband's the one that watches that kind of stuff. Not me so much, but I'm sure he'd know and be very excited.
I don't follow any of this kind of TV, but it's this person named Teresa who's apparently very well known in that world and just did like an NFL commercial with the Cowboys and all this kind of stuff. So I was down there and I posted some photos and be like, "Oh my God, it's Teresa!" I don't know anything, but I'm just making margaritas. Who knows?
Yeah.
People are saying
Tequila
that
has
you're
become
aging.
my drink of choice too. Oh, I know that's sweet, right?
Well, the people in chat are saying that you're aging in reverse, so maybe tequila is.
Yes, tequila's the drink that is helpful. Yeah, I've been
That's
on
amazing.
my wannabe version that you'll probably say is also inaccurate, but my version of a Paloma has been my night drink. A little Dano Silver with I don't know if you've
Yes.
ever had those Solils, like I don't know if the Soleil, Solils, whatever, those sparkling waters. They have a grapefruit one that's actually really
Oh
good.
yeah,
Has
yeah, 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 yeah,
no
for sure.
calories, no sweetener, so I like squeeze like half a lime. And yes, people, I put at least 2 ounces of tequila in my drink. I do. And then a little, grapefruit Solil. I'm like, yes, that's been my nightly treat. Pretty good, I must say.
I love it. I'm sure chat's gonna want to know what two JaNee ounces look like if they know
I
what
know.
1 ounce looks like.
Depends on what
I,
time of night we're talking.
perfect. I'm gonna grab one thing just to set my little setting here since we're a
Okay,
little early. I'll be back in a second. If you want
sounds
to
good.
answer any questions in chat, then by all
Okay,
means, you know what I mean.
will
You're the
do.
star here. I'll be right back.
All right, so I see, how do I feel about my videos? Well, when I made them and then I watched them the first time, I probably, like you guys, was on the floor dying laughing because I was like, wow, did I really say that? Okay, I guess I did. And I thought, well, no one will see these. They're pretty funny though, so maybe this will be good for a hosting reel and maybe somebody will, hire me to be a humorous host of some show. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd be here 13 years later because those videos were made in 2010, still talking about them. So pretty funny. Let's see, what else have we got? Hi, hello from Georgia. So glad you're here. Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. You guys are so kind. Yeah, 2 ounces. Maybe I actually do use an actual measuring instrument when I'm at home most of the time, except for if I'm on my second or third. Then sometimes, just pour with the bottle and then not always the best. Let's see. When I found these on TikTok, it's funny because a lot of people thought that I would be angry at all of the commentary on my videos, but quite honestly, I found it funny. I really enjoyed Chris though because he wasn't really mean. He's actually humorous, and I would just think, wow, his commentary on my ridiculous videos is very funny. And so I had a friend said, "Oh, can you believe that this guy? He's kind of duetting with your videos." And so of course I just followed him on Twitter, and then he reached out, and I was like, "Wow, you're actually a really nice guy, and I appreciate that you um, were not as mean and harsh as some of the other people that were commenting on my videos." But let's see. Do I? No, I don't use grocery store lime juice. I'm glad. That's a very good question. Somebody said, "Do I use grocery store lime juice?" Yuck. No, I buy a bag of limes at a time, and I do have a little juicer um, for that because store-bought lime juice, gross. I store-bought simple syrup, gross. Store-bought sweet and sour, never. Ew. But that was what was there. So they paid me, and they provided. That was what they provided. No jiggers, no pouring spouts, and just nothing. Basically, other than a bunch of gross, cheap grocery store liquor. But yeah, let's see. Am I still making drinks today? So I host a lot of dinner parties, host lots of dinner parties, but I wouldn't say that I do it professionally. And it depends on the size of dinner party. We have a couple friends that they're my hoity-toity friends. When they come over, we always have to have the expensive wine and the fancy cocktail of choice. And Then I have my others that come over and we're drinking, Kirkland Sauvignon Blanc and whatever. So I guess I could be all over the board with that. But yeah, I don't necessarily work in a restaurant or bar anymore, but I still do make cocktails. Let's see, bourbon and Tabasco. I know some of those recipes. So a lot of, you look at these and you think, where did these recipes come from? I did not create these recipes. These recipes came from a spreadsheet, and I was given this spreadsheet, and I was told to make these drinks that I have never heard of for the most part. But, I just powered through and did it all with a smile. Let's see, how long did I do those videos? So I think there was over 200 something videos, and they were shot over 2 days. So the one, anytime you see me in the black halter top, that was day one. And then the red shirt was day two. And we had what's it called? No cutting, no nothing. It was just and go, and go. And so each video was shot without any editing. And I'm sure you can see that because, as you guys know, with the old fashioned, no bitters even came out of the bottle, apparently. And so all of that was just off the top of my head, which I look back and I think, wow, I don't, but how did that come out of your brain? We don't know, but I was trying to be funny, I suppose. And at least I made y'all laugh.
They're so good. Can we talk a little? I'm so curious to hear the whole story about getting recruited by Mahalo and like what was the process like. I'm so curious to hear about the camera people. Just like, you know what I mean? Like whenever I watch these videos, it's like for me it's so much like when I see movies like The Room or something like that, where I don't know if you're familiar with like Tommy Wiseau and that whole background, but it's like there's JaNee the character, right? Like the person that's in these videos. But then for me, when I watch these, I'm always stuck thinking about the layers on layers of like meta. Do you know what I mean? Where there's like JaNee the person who is an actor, bartender in LA, putting together some footage. Someone comes in, hey, do you want to record some videos, right? And you're like, yeah, sure, right? I've done the same. For the record, like there's footage somewhere of me in China in weird commercials. Like I did a sausage commercial. I did a commercial where I went to Shaolin Temple and I'm in like kung fu robes.
Oh,
if
wow.
that was ever on YouTube, like there's people saying, "Oh, Chris," you know what I mean? So like that's part one for me is like this background, because when I watch these videos, I'm thinking about literally JaNee that's in the video. I'm thinking about you in your mind just trying to like keep it together across this day of doing like 100 cocktails. You know what I mean?
It's a funny thing. So when I was, to get to there, I'll go all the way back. So when I was like 11 or 12, I was walking through a mall and there was a photographer who was like, hey, I was in Sacramento, not even LA. I would like to do a portfolio for you and send it in to Marladell Talent Agency. So by the time I was 13, 14, I want to be an actress, right? So I was doing auditions and things in San Francisco, leads me to decide to graduate high school a year early. And so I moved to LA, where I was in a couple little things like Young and the Restless and Passions and blah, 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 soap opera stuff, so commercials. Cool. Yeah, so very cool. But then, my parents were very pro-college.
Before you continue, everyone watching, please share the live and hit like if you can, so that more people can know that we're on. Because I know so many people have been waiting for this day to finally come. Pardon my interruption. Please continue.
Oh, no, you're good. So anyhow, it kind of went there, but I decided to go back and I graduated from UC Davis, so I stopped acting for a while. Anyways, moved back to LA, hence how Mahalo happens. And I'm auditioning again for things, trying to, get back into the entertainment industry. And I was castingfrontier.net is actually who sent me a audition invite, basically, for LA's Hottest Bartender. So I went and I auditioned. And they asked me to make a skinny margarita. And I was like, sure. So they video me and I had fresh limes, actually. They actually had the barware there. And they had some decent tequila and like a little splash of soda water, even though I don't even do the soda water. I'm just like, a little fresh lime, a little tequila, good. So I made this. And of course, I'm ad-libbing like I do in the videos. And they called me and they're like, you're hired. So then I show up on set, but I'm assuming because I auditioned through an actual company that I'm going to show up and that there will be, jiggers, pour spouts, that there will be muddlers, like barware. Otherwise, I could have brought my own, but I didn't. I assumed they had stuff.
Do you know at this point what is LA's hottest bartender? Like, how was that
No,
pitched to you? No. Okay, so someone
no
comes
idea.
in, they're like, "We're doing a program called LA's hottest bartender. Do you
Yes.
want?" And you're like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." Right?
Yeah, well, I'm like, you guys are
Are
going to
these
pay me, and this will be added to my credits of things that I do. Maybe I'll use some of the footage as a hosting reel. It was so funny. Who knew? So I showed these videos to my manager at the time, and I was like, I know these are like crazy. Especially, I think it's the Mad Pirate, where I'm like, yo ho ho, a pirate's life for me, or whatever I say at the end. And I'm like, can we like submit these to some hosting jobs? And he's like, no, that's such low quality film. No one's going to watch these. These are, and I'm like, well, I feel like maybe I could audition to host and I'd be a humorous host. And, they're like, no. And here we are 13 years later. And I'm like, see, people thought I was funny, or at least they thought
people?
something.
Absolutely. I've seen like my own content notwithstanding, like I've seen multiple people post these videos and get, it's million everyone is people are, I think, drawn to your this is just my own projection, so I'm also curious to hear why you think people love these so much. But for me it's like so relatable, also like you're just getting through it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And the fact that you're so charming and like genuinely just doing your best, plus the fact that it's like that meme where the dog is sipping coffee and everything's on fire and he's like, this is fine. Like that's really how it feels. And so there's just this tension there. You know what I mean? It's amazing.
Yeah, well, I think it helped that I really didn't think. I mean, when I found that it was a search engine like for educational material, I'm like, no one's going to be researching how to make a mad pirate. Like, why would anybody? So I'm like, cool, you guys are going to pay me, no worries. And so, yeah, I just, you power through and you're like, and they didn't seem to care if it was, I don't even think they knew if it was right or not. So the people that were the camera crew were just so happy. They were like, oh, yeah, that was good. I'm like, okay, moving on to the next one. But there didn't seem to be, there was no guidance. I mean, the fact that they gave me, I asked them, I was like, you gave me sugar cubes. Like, what do you want me to do with the sugar cubes? I'm like, I don't have any boiling water to like make simple syrup with these. What do you want me to do with these sugar cubes? And I mean, again, like I'm doing now, sometimes I talk faster than my brain can catch up. And so hence the words liquidy and whatnot will come out because you're
No,
like,
it's perfect.
but you're just searching for something off the top of your head for it to make sense. And so when I watch it now and I'm like, oh, that's funny. But I'm like, at least I didn't stutter. So that's okay most of the time.
Yeah, no, it's for me it's so charming, right? Because you're
Thank you.
you're you're just getting through it. It's such a like at face value, the videos are insane, right? At pure face value, the recipes are insane. The oftentimes the ingredients that you're saying out loud, because I'm sure you're reading the Excel or whatever, right? You're
Yes,
like,
yes.
this is milk, but like when I think about the meta of it, they just didn't give you enough of anything, right? So when you hit recipe 65 for the day, and you're like, all right, it's going to be heavy cream, and we're just
Yes.
getting through it, you know what I mean? And
Well, I think
but
the worst was the ice situation. I had to keep straining the ice with my hand because there was no sink and we just had this little bucket of ice. So I had to keep using the same ice. And so when people say, did I drink these drinks? No, it was like 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning. I mean, I like a cocktail, but no, I'm not a morning drinker. No, thank you. And none of them looked appealing anyways. Plus, if you guys realized that I was actually pouring like the drink through my hand at the end and straining and reusing ice, gross, right? Hence with like the hands in the cherry jar, it's like, well, here we
yes,
go.
no,
Not
of
very
course,
sanitary.
of course. And I'm gonna ask you a question that is my own assumption about how this went, but you tell me if I'm right or wrong. Is that you had I've seen a martini glass, I've seen a shot glass, I've seen a pint glass, right? And
Yes,
so my understanding is that if it didn't go in a shot and it didn't go in a martini, you're filling the glass. Because it's like
yes,
otherwise, if you make a rational cocktail, it's going to be like also
uh-huh,
looking insane, right? For film.
yes,
Is that
yes.
right?
You are
That's
exactly
my
right.
assumption.
Because as you know, when you work in a bar, you have your 10-ounce rocks glasses and then you have your 12-ounce because it's
Sure.
like, well, if there's no mixer, then we're going to use this one if we're doing something. And so you have different even sized martini glasses for actual, vodka martinis versus like a Cosmo or a lemon drop. And so it's like, yes, you have different sized glassware, but I didn't have that option.
Yes. Yeah. You're just like, this is my pint glass. Like here we go
Yeah,
again, right? There's
yeah.
no bar spoon, there's no nothing. It's amazing. So you get there, right? I just really want to vividly understand. You show up. You think it's LA's hottest bartender. You don't know what that means, right? But you know that you've been hired for something,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So is it like a car picks you up, you drive out, like walk me step by step here.
So I was bartending at Katana, which is still in business. It's a very nice sushi and robata bar restaurant off Sunset in West Hollywood. So I worked there, and I was the closer that night. So I probably got home at about two something in the morning. It's not as late,
Mm-hmm.
thankfully, as a bar because it's a restaurant, but still. And then I had to be in Santa Monica at this random studio at like 8 o'clock in the morning. And so of course I leave at 6:45 ish. So I maybe get 4 hours of sleep, right? So
Sure,
no, not a lot of sleep. I get there,
classic
it's horrible
open.
traffic. Uh-huh.
Okay.
So I get there, and I mean, my hair is still from like the night before. It's like, I'm like, well, I ran a brush through it. We're good. Let's throw a little makeup on. All right, we're here. And so I'm thinking, maybe they'll have a crew there that's going to help fix me. No, there's nobody there. They're just trying to figure out how to wire the mic onto whatever I have. And I'm like, okay. Well, this is what we're doing. It's a low budget. I don't know. This is how it's going.
Something's going
But
on.
yeah. No car picks me up. I show up, and it's like an industrial kind of like office, or no, sorry, corporate office like building, like one of those office-y complexes. And so,
Okay.
to me, if you're LA's hottest bartender, shouldn't we be shooting this at a bar or like somewhere that has, a bar and things in the background, as opposed to a empty office space that has a fold-out table with a tablecloth and a bunch of grocery store bottles of liquor and mixers just stacked on it. There's no sink, nothing.
I gotta. You show up. It's an office building. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yes,
Okay,
it's an
so
office.
it's not like a studio lot, right? It's none of this
No,
stuff. It's an
no.
office building, and
Yeah.
it's on the ground floor. It's a
Yes.
tall building.
Ground floor.
Okay.
It's a one-story single little building. Yeah.
So it's like a crime scene. I'm imagining like a crime scene, like an ominous single-story parking lot, right? You walk in. Do people greet you at the front?
There was nobody there except for the two guys, the camera guy, and then there was two gentlemen that were kind of facilitating this whole thing. And so, yeah, I walked in, and they're like, hey. And I mean, again, nothing's going on. They're like, we're going to try to mic you. And it's funny. So I worked with them the 2 days, and thank goodness no one found the other one. But the company hired me again to do, you're going to have to tell me the pronunciation. Is it a sommelier or sommelier? Sommelier?
Sure. I'm not
I don't know.
my stance on TikTok is that I'm not the pronunciation police, a sommelier or whatever. Okay.
I don't know. But I had to.
A wine professional.
Yes, I went to interview him at a restaurant in Santa Monica later. And so they had me interviewing him about what to pair with beef, what to pair with this different chicken, et cetera. So I ended up working with this company for 3 different days.
Okay.
Because they were plenty nice, and they, to me, it's like between, I think the interview was only the one where I interviewed the wine guy, that was like only $500, but these ones were like $1,000 per day. So
You're
for me,
making
I'm
money.
like, I'm making money. So I'm like, okay,
Oh,
let's do this. Yeah.
I'd
So
have
it's
done
like, oh, yeah. So I'm like, it's
Yeah.
fine. This is fine. We'll do this. Yeah. So that's kind of how that went.
Got it. So so you show up. There's 2 people facilitating. Are the people facilitating also the camera crew?
Yes.
Okay. So people. All right. So there's one-story building. You drive up. It's like eerie, ominous. You don't know what you're walking into. 2 people. You know that you're there to make cocktails for LA's hottest bartender.
Yeah.
You open the door. It's what, like a picnic table inside, like a folding
Yes.
table. Oh
Like,
my
when you
gosh.
throw a party and you have those little long rectangle tables that you pop out and you put, tablecloths on. That's what it was. It was a fold out like party table.
Like
Yeah.
no, every time you hit it, I'm sure everything is shaking, right? Like there's no structural integrity to the table. Okay, so you have 1 bag of ice
One bag. Yes.
in a cooler, or it's just sitting out sweating.
So it's in like, I don't know what they're called, but like the jugs, when you work in a restaurant, how they have the ice things that the barbacks bring the ice in. So it was in an actual,
Oh, okay, so like a bucket, right?
there you go. Yeah, like a big bucket. Exactly. So it was in that, but that was it for the 100 and whatever cocktails for the day. So it was like, all right, we have to use this ice sparingly, and we have to reuse this ice because we don't have any more.
Amazing. Okay, so you've got a bucket. The bucket is not refrigerated, right? So it's just collecting meltwater in itself, getting sweatier and sweatier as it's
Yes.
sitting. The bucket's on the floor.
Uh-huh.
Carpeted floor. Do you
Carpeted
remember?
floor. Yes,
Okay.
carpeted floor. So you're like, well, okay.
So- it's so sketchy. I mean, it could just as easily. Anyway, that's so sketchy. Okay, so you're there, carpeted floor. a picnic table, tablecloth, and I see all the bottles are just to your flanks, right? Like it's just all of the colored liquor. And how do they give you the recipes? Did you have time to read the recipes before you started?
It was just a spreadsheet, and so we would do one at a time. And so they had it, spreadsheeted. All right, and then some of them were wrong. So I did tell them when they wanted me to make a mojito, they had me using Captain Morgan's, and I was like, no, 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 we don't use spiced rum in a mojito. I'm like, let's cross
Boom.
this off. I'm like, do you have a silver rum somewhere? I'm like, that's what we're looking for here. And then they did have some Bacardi, I think is what I ended up using, or maybe it was some off-brand. Who knows? I don't remember. But yeah, it was just a spreadsheet, and so they had the ingredients, and then there was no this is the part that I have to admit to. It wasn't like there was a script. So that is me just making up stuff. There was
Of
no
course,
script.
but you've got
Yeah.
to fill, like, you're trying to get through it to get that check at the end of the day, right?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
I think everyone watching can relate to that, right? It's just someone says, here's the script. If you can either walk
Yeah.
away and be like, I'm out, or you can be like, look, dude, I'm already here. Let's just make the stupid drinks. I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say. No one's gonna see it anyway. Was there like a bucket to dump the? What did you dump all the drinks out into?
Yeah, there was a bucket. So, but again, not a sink. So it was a bucket. That's why people are like, at the end of the day, there was this giant bucket full of nasty, just everything colored,
Heavy
right? And
cream.
yeah. And so like, did you drink it? No, no, no one drank that. That was, no, thank you. No, that got dumped.
Disgusting. Did you ever? So when you ran out of ingredients during the day? Okay, hold on. I'm not even gonna get there yet. So okay, you start. There's a spreadsheet. Did you know? Okay, and you didn't know anything. So when you come in, you see this sheet of 100. It's 100 recipes per day, right?
Yes.
Sheesh.
And
So you saw all 100, and you're like,
well, none of
how
them I'd
long
even
did?
heard of. I'm like, nobody, or I mean, you guys have seen the drinks. People don't order that when you go to a nice restaurant. So I'm like, I
A
don't see
Harrison
anything
Ford.
on. Yeah, I'm like, what are you guys doing here? I'm like, there's plenty of real drinks that we could teach people how to make, but no, I think they must have been going for humor or something. I can't imagine because again, those are not even real drinks. So, I mean, what's a Buzz Lightyear? I saw you thing. I'm like, I've never heard of such a thing. And I'm like, and I think that kids aren't supposed to be drinking, and Toy Story is a kids movie, so I don't know. But
This is one of my favorite parts of the video is that no person at any point in the process is invested in the outcome except for you insofar as you want the money and maybe some footage. Do you know what I mean?
basically,
So this is for me the funniest part of all these videos is that like normally okay, there's crazy drink recipes on TikTok that exist, right? But usually it's like a recipe that is intentionally provocative because people just want engagement, like a
right.
margarita made out of a coffee machine or whatever. Or it's some people just have like, this is a drink that I really like and I'm showing it to you. And maybe it's a crazy recipe, maybe it's not, but that's for the world to judge. What's really amazing about these videos is that it's neither a drink that you care about nor is it a drink that the people making the video care about. And it's just you there trying to get through it.
Yes.
You know? But not also simultaneously not acknowledging the insanity of the situation that you're in.
Yeah, I
Is that
mean,
a
I
fair
watch it and I
summary?
just can't. Yes, I mean, when you think about it, it's just on repeat. Hi, I'm JaNee from Holla.com, and I'm making. Hi, 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 hi. Yes,
Let's
yay! Here we
go.
go. Yes, pretty much, pretty much.
Insane. How long did it take you to get through 100? So you show up at 9 o'clock.
I had to be back at work at 4, so I told them that, and so I shot from 8 until about 2:30, 3 o'clock, I think, the first day, and then I went back to work. Um, and then I think the next day it was till almost 4. But yeah,
Epic. Epic. And then that was 2 days in a row, right?
yeah. I
So
ended up
day
sick
two,
afterwards because I had worked back to back. So if you think about it, 4 hours of sleep and then the next one, 4 hours of sleep. And so I worked double shifts. So I would do the videos during the day and then I worked my shift. And I ended up on day 3 coming down with strep throat. And I was like, yep, now I'm sick.
that'll
one
do it.
one cannot work that many hours a day.
I
And
mean, I like hearing about you pouring heavy cream over a bucket in a carpeted single story office in the middle of Sacramento sounds like it's a place that you would probably get strep throat.
yeah, it's true.
Those are the conditions Those
It's like,
are the
yeah,
conditions to
uh-huh,
create
uh-huh.
a new pathogen.
Yes, yes, a little bacterial infection. But
Epic.
no,
So you did wake up, you're on the road, you go there, you arrive at 8:30, you film straight through the morning, making 100 cocktails that are all zany. You go straight from there to work,
correct.
stuff some food in your face, presumably, just
Yes.
trying to like get ready for your shift, pound of water, and then you're working straight until 2 a.m. basically, right? And that's
Yeah,
2 days
yeah.
in a row. It's a wicked clopen. That's nasty.
Yeah, yeah. But at the end I remember going, well, I made my tips and I made my money from there. I made good money these 2 days.
Yeah, look, I mean I think that's the thing that everybody watching can most relate to is it's
Yeah.
like what are you going to do at the end of the day, right? You get an opportunity to make a couple grand in a couple days
They're like, there's my
and
rent. Perfect.
yeah, 100%. Like we've
Yes.
done weird odd jobs in the name of rent. That's like very relatable. Um Epic. I've got one day I've got a story for you about doing a weird commercial in China, and it's like very much the same story. Amazing. So you do 2 full days of this, and then it gets posted to YouTube by Mahalo.com. Do you know very much about Mahalo.com at this point, or did you look into it,
I
or
mean,
just
I looked it up and I realized that they just do a lot of different tutorials, like all these different, and they're not in business anymore, obviously. Clearly, they weren't doing their due diligence to make sure that the educational videos were actually educational, and accurate. So they're no longer in business. But that's all I knew was I'm like, okay, it's some type of search engine website thing that promotes educational tutorials of different things.
it's epic? Would I'm gonna get in a minute into like how these videos have taken a life on their own after the fact, but like, did looking back at it now, I guess my first question is like, okay, you're there, you're coming up, you're an actor, you're making rent, you're making some money, 2 crazy days, you get through it, you get sick, you take a rest, in isolation, not yet talking about like where these videos have gone since. Would you do it again? You know what I mean? Like, do you feel like if you can talk to your previous self, or you'd be like, look, dude, go and do you, or what do you think?
What I wish I would have done is realize that I needed to change my aim. And it's like, I probably wouldn't have listened to my manager. I would have still maybe done them and then
Yeah.
figured out how to get in the hosting side because it's very frustrating. I've always enjoyed comedy more than drama. And they always sent me for like these very dramatic or like, oh, you're going to play the sexy, whatever. And I'm like, that's really not me. I'm like, I'd rather play this
Mm.
person. And I never really got, a lot of the time I didn't get to read for the roles that I wanted. And I probably would still do it again, but I might have would have taken it in a different realm. And I probably would have used the footage to do something different, maybe try to get a hosting agent or something like that. But then again, I mean, they were so poorly shot. I don't know, but hindsight's
That's so
2020.
it's so interesting. Like, so what I'm hearing you say is that your feeling about it isn't so much the videos in and of themselves, but your feeling about it is more having done them, you wish that you would have advocated harder for a different professional direction in terms of the style of media that you were making after the fact. Is that fair?
That is very fair. Yes.
So awesome. I mean, so what did you wind up ever pursuing? I'm so curious about that. Did you wind up ever pursuing comedy like later in life, or has this ever been a chapter of your story?
So it's an interesting thing. I did, they have a UCB underground comedy, like, and they have groundlings and all those types of things in LA, which are basically teaching you improv comedy. I did take some
Sure.
classes. I kind of wanted to get into that. To be fair, this is what I will say. If people were to look at my resume, I've had a variety of careers, and I think that's been a problem for me. Is I enjoy everything, and so it's hard to pick a direction. And so
A
it's like, all right, I'm going to go to school.
multi-potentialite.
Oh, yes. Originally, when I went to UC Davis and graduated with political science and international relations degree, I was planning on pursuing law. But I was only
Okay.
20 when I graduated. And so then I was like, well, maybe I'll go back into acting because all the law schools that I wanted to get into, I had a great GPA, but I was young and I didn't have a lot of work experience outside of restaurant experience. And so even though I was thinking that at the time, I was bartending at an Outback Steakhouse and they were like, hey, you're a really great employee. Do you have any desire maybe to become a proprietor? And I was like, well, what does that entail? And they said, well, it's only $25,000 to buy in. They kind of explained, how you become a proprietor. So I was just like in all these directions. And I didn't really end up pursuing the comedy. I think I just I gave up on certain things too quickly, and I
Hmm.
always did want to be a mom and have family life. So to be fair, women, let me just say, my mistake out there was always chasing some man's dream. They'd be like, "Oh, I don't want you to do this anymore. We need to move here. Let's get engaged," and you quit doing
Mm.
that or whatever it might be. And so that was my mistake, is very often following romantic relationships in this hope of becoming a mom, which I did succeed. I did eventually, find that happily ever after. But it detracted from my professional career, I would say. And I don't think I invested enough in myself. Um, and so sometimes I think that was my mistake. And so that led me to, end up where I am today, which I'm perfectly happy with. But I think I could have been more successful if I would have focused, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Do you see yourself maybe in a future chapter in your life ever taking another look at comedy?
Oh, I would love it. It was very funny, these videos. So I don't know if you guys, if any of you ever watched Demon Cam, that little short that I did, Andrew Kramer, um,
Mm.
was the one who did. I actually got that job because of Kevin Costner. So Kevin Costner came into Katana one night,
Oh
and
wow.
we were chatting at the bar, and he was meeting somebody, and I was telling him, "Yeah, I'm trying to become an actor." I know Kevin Costner. I said, "But I'm sure you can relate." So, and he ended up calling my work the next day and was like, "Hey, I have a job for her if she's free this Saturday." And so Kevin Costner actually knew Andrew Kramer, and that's how I ended
Okay.
up doing the Demon Cam thing. The reason this is relevant, I recently saw he's back doing short films, and we connected on Facebook. And he was just like,
Did
"Oh, I've
you?
seen because he's seen my bourbon video. He's like, "I've seen you pouring the Jim Beam," and I'm like, maybe I'll get to make another short, or I'll get to do something cool because he's in that industry. But I don't know if that would happen. But I would be very excited. If somebody
Dude,
gave me the opportunity, I would jump at that.
millions of people know your face. Like, you know what I mean? There's I'm no PR publicist expert, but they say that no press is bad press, right?
Right?
So exactly. So it's out there. That's really exciting. Will you keep us all posted if
I will. If
you know
somebody
if,
reaches out, I'll be
if
like,
it
"Hey, I get
manifests?
to do something." Yeah, no, I would enjoy that because I do enjoy performing, and I enjoy making people laugh a lot. So,
Yeah, this person in chat says you're already a star. Build on it. Like
oh, thank you.
I agree. You know what I mean? People like, it's really funny because in my channel that I'm doing here on TikTok, like I really, through this whole journey, I'm very much JaNee's co-star. Like I'm not the sole agent here in the videos. So it's people love to see you. Everyone comments. Like I find that the comments below are always like funny, but funny in jest. You know what I mean? It's like good
Yes.
spirited that people are in on the joke. And
Oh, my
so,
parents think you're hilarious. I've showed them because my parents are not on TikTok, obviously, but I was like, "This is who writes," and they were dying. So you provided a lot of comments. So that's generous to say you're a co-star, but I think you're, you know,
well, it's
co-star,
the
not.
rapport.
Yeah, it was like,
That's
yeah,
I'll take co-star. We'll that's fair enough. But it's yeah, for me it's just grounding and contextualizing what's already amazing. But the people vibe with your energy, I have to say, and you make a lot of people, or we in our collaboration here, people comment every single day that it makes them really happy and it brings them a lot of joy. Or people will comment like, I was having such a shitty couple of days and this video put a big smile on my face. And and like it's even if it's a comedy of errors, you know
yeah.
what I mean? It still is meaningful for people, which is cool. It's really cool to see. Yeah, yeah, someone says I am the announcer and host for the JaNee show, which I can relate. That's fair enough. That's fair enough. So let's talk about this little journey. Okay, so you're making these videos. The videos, anyway, you make your check, you get strep throat, you take some time down. The videos get posted. Then there's multiple phases to the journey that is JaNee's videos, right? Of which this right now is just kind of like the latest iteration. initially it was like a Facebooky, YouTubey kind of thing. Do you want to talk about that at all? I'm sure you were aware when it happened.
So it's interesting because somebody back in the chat asked what I do for a living. So around, let's see, so these videos were made in 2010. And by
Yeah.
2012, I was teaching again. So for those of you that don't know, I'm a high school teacher. Shock, right? I
Hey.
teach U.S. history for 11th grade. And so I had went back to teaching, and it was very interesting because my high school students, of course, find these videos on YouTube. And so 2012, 2013, I have my students coming and be like, yo, Niso, because my maiden name is Nisonger, so they call me Miss Nice or Nice, and they're like, "Did you know that you're on?" I'm like, "Yes, I do know that I'm on YouTube." you know,
Mm.
and then at one point I was like, "Am I going to get fired? Am I going to be in trouble because I'm making drinks, but I teach kids?" And thankfully that was never a problem. But there was a lot of meanness, and that was what was crazy. Is I appreciate your lightheartedness because everything was either about my look or about that I was stupid or a dumb blonde or something. I'm like, hey y'all, I have a master's degree. Hey y'all, this. But it's like these are funny videos. But I guess at first, you just kind of you're like, wow. But then you're like, well, you guys don't know me, and you don't even get the backstory. So whatever. I was happy to finally get my story out there because it has kind of turned everything around from how vicious people could be at the start. And I actually would have students on Facebook going, hey, that's my teacher, don't write that about her or whatever. And I'd see them
Mm.
posting. And I feel like since the redemption video that Jim Beam Suntory hired me to do, and then I had that Punch article that came out, and then of course you, Chris, it's a lot more lighthearted, a lot less, mean and cruel.
Yes. Yeah, I think that this is also in some ways it's a change of online culture between generations. At least just from my own perspective and experience on TikTok as a platform, and it's the reason that I like TikTok so much as a community, is that I find that the YouTube and then in some ways Facebook and these areas can be really toxic in terms of like commenting relationships. People can be really cold and anonymous and just like say really nasty stuff. You know what I mean? And then what I've seen in TikTok that for me is so refreshing is that people in the comments in these videos are like generally just showing up to have a good time, and like people want to make the best joke or the most usually like the most upvoted comment, which is never nasty, right? So it kind of inherently incentivizes people to like not be divisive and just vibe and have a good time, which I think is so nice, right?
Yes, I do. And I agree with you. And it is interesting how things have changed. You think once upon a time, everybody watched actual cable TV, and now people spend their time on TikTok, other forms of social media, or Netflix, Amazon, all those things. And so it's changed a lot. I feel that you're right. Just for marketing purposes, for how people comment, interact, it is definitely different now than it used to be.
Yeah, it's been really cool. So for me the part of the fun of these videos is taking a um, taking a position of just watching them at face value. You know what I mean? Like it's more cute. I'm a big believer in my life of what I refer to as like the D to C principle, which is to go from a derisive perspective to a curious perspective. Like I see these videos and I'm just like, what is going on here? You know what I mean? Like, what's the story? And that for me is the tone that I think is the most fun, right? Like we just get in there that way. Awesome. Well, okay. So the videos start to blow up. Initially, there's like the first phase where people are just kind of nasty in YouTube comments, and it's just kind of ugly. Fast forward 10 years
Yeah.
again, right? And what happens? Is it your students tell you something, or what's the story?
So, what ended up happening is I had many different people from a variety of magazines or little blogs or whatever that were always reaching out to me. But sometimes they would reach out to me and they would do it in a rude way, if that makes sense. And so I'm like, nah, nah, nah. And then I believe it was Aaron Goldfarb. He reached out to me and he found my work email and he sent me like the nicest email, about I realized that you were kind of set up. I want to publish your side of the story. And
Mm.
so he was like, is there any time that you'd be available to talk? And so I was like, well, my prep period is such and such time if you want to call me. So we spoke on the phone. And then he kind of set up a time to come out to my house and take some pictures so that they could publish this article for Punch. Um, and I had been reached out to by different bars saying, can you come guest bartend? We think it'd be hilarious. Can you come guest bartend? And I, at the time, didn't do it. Um, and then I'd had several different, people wanting to write, but again, from a negative perspective. And so Aaron
Yes.
Goldfarb was the first one that I was like, okay, well, you seem like you want to actually listen to me and have me
Yes.
really explain to what happened. So I was like, all right. And then,
And not sit there like, what an idiot, blah, blah,
yeah,
blah. Like,
yeah,
because I go through YouTube. I must be one of 5 people in the history of humanity to actually watch all of the JaNee videos. So, like, I'm in a weird circular way, like, possibly the biggest fan here. But I see the comments suck, right? And it's just, I mean,
yeah.
people are in pain. They're in pain. They need a outlet, and that is what it is. But I can imagine that everyone just wants to write this kind of like derogatory story, right? And just have this self-fulfilling, like, oh, what an idiot up there. Who do you think you are? You know what I mean? That's no good. So, okay, Aaron comes in, Punch wants to write an article, and what's that experience like?
So that was actually really nice. When he wrote it, he actually was very accurate, and he even put, because I'm like, people kept saying I was stupid. I'm like, I graduated summa cum laude from UC Davis. I'm like, I had like a 3.8 GPA. And so he kind of published that. He was like, she's a teacher. He explained, my bartending history even. So that's like, I did get jobs at bars that are really hard to get jobs at in LA. Um, and so I read the article and I was like, wow, thank you. This was so nice. This was such a generous and kind, article. And then he knew some people over at Beam. And so I ended up getting contacted by Beam Sanatory to come and shoot a redemption video of how to make an
Yes.
old fashioned properly. And it was a very different setup. So obviously I went to their beautiful office in Chicago, which is gorgeous. And they had Amy there as an actual mixologist to come and like coach me and make sure I was actually doing it right,
Sure.
Um, so yeah, they were super nice. They flew me out to Chicago, put me up in a hotel. I went there, I got paid, and I'm like, wow, this was such a nice experience, very different than the first time round.
Yes.
But yeah, so that was kind of, I'm trying to think, that was 2019 that all happened. So
Yeah. Much later in the journey here, which is good.
yeah,
And I remember that video coming back around. You know what I mean? And that was widely shared. And I think every other JaNee video or every other video that I post, people are in the comments like directing people towards that video and being like, guys, just to be really clear, like she did do this video. So I'll definitely post it also. The only reason I haven't
it's
done
not
that,
funny. It's not a funny video.
well,
It's,
I mean, there's that, but it still is.
but it takes away from the JaNee character. And so everybody was like, are you going to redo these and do them right? And I'm like, nobody would watch them. It would be boring.
Right. Yeah. I mean, but totally right. As someone that understands the medium of entertainment, right, is
Yes.
that you lose the tension, right? But not only that, but I also, for me, the Jim Beam video, which is it's a video of you making a very well made old fashioned, comma, with a whole bunch of plugs of Jim Beam, and so I
Yeah.
always watch that video, and I'm like, I wish that and this is like me, I guess, like nitpicking history here, but I really wish that if I were Beam in 2019, I would love for you to quickly make an old fashioned, but then also sit down and be like, let me just tell you what happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because for me, I feel like that's what people want to hear, is not like, by the way, I also really know how to make these cocktails, but like, tell us about that weird office with carpet and
Yeah.
how gnarly it all was. Like, that for me is the hashtag justice for JaNee.
Well, and this one was scripted. So I did have a script. It was like a 2-page written
Yeah.
script, So it wasn't me making stuff up anymore. It was like, okay, this is what we're doing. So
Yes.
yeah, very
Yeah.
different.
We will use the delicious Jim Beam. You know what I mean?
The Jim
Which
Beam
is kind of,
Black specifically.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
very specifically, hashtag double aged, all this kind of stuff, which is fair enough.
Yes.
So you went, you did a beautiful shoot in their Chicago office, and then back to normal, right? And then one day in 2021, some moron living in Colorado starts to post your videos, and you're on TikTok. How does this? Do
I wouldn't have
you?
known because I
Yeah.
wasn't on TikTok or anything. My cousin sent me a whole bunch of shared your videos with me. And
Okay.
she goes, you're going viral again. And I was like, really? And so I'm watching them and I'm like, oh, he's actually really funny. And I was like, but he's not being mean, but he's funny. And so that's why then I had seen them on Twitter at first, and so
Yeah.
I simply, I think, added you or followed you or whatever. And then you're like, is this the real JaNee? And I was like, yes, yes, it is. It's
Yeah,
not the
yeah, yeah.
pretend JaNee, it is.
I got a Twitter notification. I don't post anything to Twitter. I'm never on it. I just have the account, and then I got a little ping and just checked it out, and I was like, whoa! And I remember I told my wife, I was like, it's JaNee. What do I do? What do we do? All
Yeah.
right. Fair enough. But you've been awesome. So I just want to, like, just on behalf of everybody in the comments here, 830 people watching right now, like, thank you. Thank you for being
Yes.
such a star and such a, like, a really kind person. You can imagine, right? Like, the way that this has unfolded in your life and has kind of like suddenly been this chapter of your world, willingly or unwillingly, for 13 years now. You can imagine, like, you can really imagine people not having that perspective or positivity, or be like, maybe, this is comedy. At its core, it's kind of what I always wanted to do. And I can really imagine people taking that and applying a whole different spin and meaning to it, and not having nearly as positive of an outlook, or like as kind of a disposition. So just, I know that people keep commenting below, but like, you're great. Thank you for being
Oh,
so
thank
rad.
you.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure people want to, and yeah, look at all these people commenting. It's awesome. Thank you, guys. Um, so let me go back to my little list here. So this comes out. You're living your life. You've been on mat leave. Congrats again,
Thank you.
by the way.
Yes.
And uh, acting, bartending. So a lot of people have joined from the beginning. People see do you ever get noticed? Like, do people ever like spot you in public and they are like, oh my God, JaNee?
Thankfully, no, but I think it's maybe because of where I live. I mean, I live in the greater Sacramento area, and I bet you if I was still in the bartending scene, or I was living in LA or somewhere, maybe even New York with the real mixologists, right? Then maybe I would be recognized.
They're all drunks. we're
Uh,
all drunks.
Thankfully,
um,
nobody at school drop off or pick up is like, oh, we've seen your videos. And I'm like, okay. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's incredible. At some point in time, we'll do a thing at a cocktail thing. It'll be hilarious.
Okay.
Let's see here. Do you make cocktails at home at all? I know you talked about this when we first ramped up, but like, what do you do?
Well,
People
to be
come over. Do
fair, you're
you
gonna
make them a
laugh.
big old fashioned?
No, I mean that I do sometimes. It's funny. After the redemption video came out, anytime my in-laws came over, that's what they wanted me to make them. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So, but typically I'm a margarita maker and everybody knows them and they call them fire water because yes, people, I do pour heavy and I'm like, these are plus, you know how people are. They come over to your party and you're like, this is not meant to go in the 16-ounce solo cup. This is meant to go in a rocks glass and you're meant to sip on it. I see you with the straw. You're not going to feel good later. It's like, this is not what that's meant for. My brother's known for that. But I typically we thankfully, so we recently, 3.5 years ago, bought a home that has a really large backyard. So summer is like our time that we have a lot of people over. And
Sure.
I do taco nacho bars and I make a whole bunch of food and we usually have between 20 and 40 people over and I have this 5-gallon kind of jug thing that I make margaritas in, but I don't use sweet and sour at all. I call them a 3-2-1 margarita, 3 parts tequila, 2 parts Grand Marnier, 1 part lime juice, fresh squeezed lime. So I sit there and I squeeze like a bag of limes with the squeezer.
Strong.
Uh-huh. And I like the Grand Marnier because I'm all about the Cadillac margaritas. Sometimes I think Cointreau is a little bit better, but I go to Costco and guess what? They half the time don't have Cointreau. So I just get the Grand Marnier because it's cheaper at Costco.
There you
But
go.
yeah, so, if I'm making them just for like, what do I call it? A group of four, like a dinner party, I do the 1 gallon jug. And so it'll be 9 ounces of tequila, 6 ounces of the Grand Marnier, and then the 3 ounces. Am I doing this right? 3, 2, 1, yes. And then
Yeah.
3 ounces of the fresh squeezed lime. But I learned my lesson. So I used to stick it in the jug without ice, and then people would pour it over ice. And I learned you do have to actually fill it up with the ice because you do want it to water down a little bit to mellow. Because,
Otherwise,
man,
people
people,
will just get crushed.
whew, yes, in like an hour or two. And it was like, okay, we did not mean for this to happen. So that's kind of the thing. And so that's kind of what people always assume is going to be when they come to my parties. They're like, where's the jug of the margaritas? Where is it? Sometimes I do white linens. So sometimes I'll do white linens like as a summer cocktail. But when I do large parties, you don't want to make individual cocktails all day. You want to visit with people. And so I try to make the big batch and hope that it stays good. Whereas if I'm just having, my parents over for dinner, it's more like, well, what do you want? My dad likes to drink Hendrick's Rocks with a lime, pretty easy. My mom doesn't drink, so it's like, here's your Diet Coke. It's funny, I saw your Diet Coke and champagne for Tom Hanks, and I'm like, oh, my mom and I are Diet Coke drinkers. I don't mix mine with champagne either. But, whatever. So I do make drinks, but it's funny because I'm not as fancy as you, as we all saw with your, what was that, fall cocktail. I'm trying to
Sure.
be minimal effort for maximum output. And so, thankfully my husband's a Kirkland vodka drinker with, some soda water and he's happy. It's like, okay, here you go. And I either have a glass of wine or like I said earlier, I've been making my version of Palomas and I had some Danos tequila, thanks to, thanks to you. And so I used some Danos silver and man, I had never had that before, but I'm a huge fan of Danos tequila. And so, yeah,
Ooh.
2 ounces. And yes, I use an actual measuring increment so that I don't get too wild. So 2 ounces of that. And then I cut a lime in half, squeeze that whole half lime, and then just fill up the rest of my, yes, it's a pint glass, with the Soleil, whatever it's called, grapefruit soda water thing, and then drink it with a straw. And it's really refreshing. And I like the switch from, I used to do the vodka with that, but I like the tequila. It's so much more flavorful. I feel like I can sip on it a little more and enjoy it as it's being kind of like tasting like water. So that's kind of my cocktail repertoire today. It's not that fancy. But
Amazing. But the best ones never are. And I like this. I just want a bumper sticker that has JaNee smiling, and it's the quote. What was it you just said? Minimal effort for maximum output.
yes,
That's going to be when we
there you
have
go.
the JaNee pint glass with the JaNee ounce line on there. That's going to be the
Yeah.
quote. That's quote with like the
You're
fancy
like, here you go. You're
JaNee
going to feel better in a
signature.
couple sips. No worries.
You will be asleep. Adios. It's amazing.
Oh,
So you've I've got a question in here that we didn't get to before, but we talked a little bit about your teacher. You teach AP US history, right?
yes, yes.
Um, and so tell us about, I guess, the transition from you're a actor, bartender, and right, and then you
Yeah.
transition to AP US history. And also, I'm curious, like, how did your time as a bartender slash actor, actress, like inform your time teaching? You know what I mean? I'm so
Yeah.
curious about that.
Well, it's odd. I think that the comedy and all of that goes hand in hand because if you want to be a good history teacher, you need to be an entertainer. Otherwise, people say history is
Mm,
boring. And I'm like, it's not boring, not the way I teach it. I act it out for the kids. I have a lot of students recently that have immigrated over from Pakistan. And a lot of the girls, they can't read in Pashto. And so I can't just translate and give them. So they're like, what is guerrilla warfare? And I'm like, and I'm acting it out for them. And they're like, oh, okay, yes, I get this. And so I do think the two go together. If you want to be a good teacher, you do want to not make people fall asleep. So anyhow, I guess the way to answer that question is the way that I paid for college was bartending at Outback Steakhouse. So I wasn't 21 at first. So I was a server, but I eventually became a bartender. And when I graduated college and I was kind of in that transition of, am I going to law school? What am I doing? I was working as a bar manager at Outback
okay.
Steakhouse at night. And thankfully, they didn't open until 5. And so I was substitute teaching during the day because to become a substitute teacher, you just have to have a bachelor's degree and pass your
Okay.
basic education skills test. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to make my money during the day. I'll take a break. I'm all about, not having debt. So it's like, let's do as much hours I can
Amen.
do. I want to pay for my tuition with cash. I'm not trying to take out loans. And so, you work a lot.
Right.
So as I was doing that, I'm enjoying obviously my bartending and whatnot, but at the same time, I'm like, wow, I didn't know that I would love teaching so much because I mean, I knew I loved kids, but I didn't know I would love teaching as much as I do. And I thought I was going to want to teach like elementary aged kids, but one of my friends is a first grade teacher and she went on vacation and I took her class for 2 weeks and I was like, oh, hats off to you guys. Hats off to you guys. All of the tears. He touched me. She looked at me. Why am I not line leader? And I was like, nope, nope, can't do this. Love kids one-on-one level, but massive, no, no, no. So then I go and I'm teaching high school. They're like,
Less.
sup? And I'm like, what's up to you?
Yeah.
But they're coming in and, and I just think it helped that I was young and I was energetic. And so tried to be relatable. And so I just think a lot of teachers also go straight from college to teaching. And so they have no real world experience. And the kids see that
Mm.
and they're like, you don't know what you're talking about. You have no idea. And I'm like, oh, well, yes, I do. Um, and so kind of it all went together. And so I decided, because I didn't get into law school, sad face, where I wanted to go. I only got in out of state. And again, I had a good GPA. My LSAT score was okay, but I was 20 and I hadn't done like an internship. That was like a legal internship, which is what a lot of people do. I've been working at a restaurant. So I gather that. So I ended up going, well, I'll get my master's in secondary education. And then that way I have at least a teaching credential and I can do that. And the nice thing about a teaching credential is you can, use it for a very long time. Um, so that's kind of how all that fit together. And so then I ended up becoming a teacher. And at the time I was only 23 and I was like, wait a second. I don't know that I'm ready to just like buy a house and teach for the rest of my life. And this credential is not going anywhere. I think I'm going to move back to LA and maybe try my hand at some acting again. Obviously I'll need to pay rent. Good thing I have the bartending skills. So I'm like, I'll do that. Um, and that kind of is how that played into all that.
It's fascinating. I always tell because people ask a fair amount about bartending and if you work in the industry, like is that going to be your future forever or what's the other applications? And I feel like personally, as someone who's mentored a whole ton of bartenders in my world, like I think the thing that's most overlooked is the insane amounts of like real world experience and socializing that you get to have. Like the amount of people, when you're talking to people over a bar, the amount of social interactions that you have to command and master and get through in the course of a day is what people working an office job, like that's more social interaction than you're having in like a month, you know what I mean, 2 months. So it's like you have this deep level of like EQ and social intelligence that
Yes.
you develop, right? And that's like that's a soft skill, right? You can't really quantify that. But then when you think about how it applies to future education, business, negotiation, right? Every time you get in front of your kids, you're negotiating in a way, like you're negotiating for their attention and their,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, it's fascinating to hear you talk about that side of it, right? And how I think probably that storytelling over the bar has
Yes.
informed your storytelling in the classroom.
Yes, and it is so important because I mean, I don't know if any of you have ever had those teachers or those professors, but I had a teacher in college that taught history. I had two different history teachers. So one would get up and like halfway fall asleep while he was telling us about European history, which is fascinating. And then I had this
Yeah.
other U.S. history teacher who'd be like, just so you know, and he was given like the side, and this person had an affair, and that's where this kid came from. And they're adding all like the juicy details to the history, and you're like, really? Really? And so I was like,
Yeah.
I want to be that kind of a teacher. And it's the same thing, like you said, in the bar. You have your regulars, and they come to see you. That's what they come for, is because they want to have that interaction.
Yes.
And it's just as much for you as the drinks and the food a lot of the time. And so I do think that that's definitely a skill. I'll even say salesmanship because you learn to read people. It's like, all right, you're going to like this. And so I'm going to recommend this
Amen.
bottle of sake, or you would probably want this wine because this is, and you've even got to think budget. It's like, all right, I know how you're kind of a this budget, you're this. And so you learn to
Yes.
read all of that. And I think that you learn a lot of skills and even just working quickly, thinking on your feet, problem solving. I mean, we've all been there when all of a sudden it's 500 covers. You have 500 reservations and you're going to be in the well that night and you're like, okay, let's go, or whatever it may be. And you've got 3 lines deep, and being able to recognize and realizing how important people want to be seen and heard. And so you always hate that bartender that you're like 3 back and they won't look at you. And you're like, they're just
Yeah.
like, I see you, I will get to you. I promise I'm getting there. Because then they're like, okay, okay, learning these skills to help people have patience. Same thing with students, right? If you're helping another student, I see you, I will be right there. Don't worry. I get that you need some help. I'll be right there. Same type of thing.
I love that. I'm reading some comments also as you're saying all this, and people saying like, "Man, I'm imagining A, JaNee's so charming and great. B, imagine if JaNee was your teacher, but also C, hearing you talk about all this and your social skill. I wonder if people would like a comedic and storytelling filled TikTok video about JaNee's favorite parts of history. Yeah, I don't know if that's
Ooh.
interesting to you or not, right? Like,
No,
what
there's
is
actually a
what's
lot of money for that in AP specifically. There's Norse notes, and there are teachers that actually try to create, because it's so hard to pass the AP exam. And so there is a market for that. Um, and a lot of them don't necessarily do it that well. So yes, there would be a market for that.
yeah, people are saying yes, yes, please in the comments. Absolutely, you know what I mean. Awesome. And then I guess so, guys. We've got a couple minutes left here. Any questions? Everyone, shoot your like. What do you? Here's the thing. JaNee is here on TikTok Live. We are here making videos. We've talked before about collaboration and possibilities. Like, what do you guys want to see? What's on your mind? Everyone, just kind of fire off your questions. Hit the share button. Send all those across. Like, what do you want to see? What do you want to hear? We talked already about favorite drinks to make as margaritas and palomas and awesome taco boards.
Yeah.
Why the how much is an ounce? Why the big heavy pours we talked about? Because there's only 1 pint glass, right? Guys, just happy to be here. That's awesome. History and cocktails. Do you still pour with your heart? Someone saying. Here's
I
yeah,
do.
yeah. And I know you mentioned already, like, what's your favorite era of history to teach? More JaNee throwing shade at Chris's drinks. Totally. Let's do more of those for sure. Merch, we're on 100%. Uh, we should do joint videos on prohibition. There's an idea.
That actually would
There's
be
an
kind of fun.
idea. That'd be fun. I'm happy. I'm actually a big history nerd, so this is fun for me too. I think we're gonna have a good time with that. Cool. JaNee, is there anything? I'm sensitive to not drag it out forever, but is there anything else that you want to say to everybody while they're here on live and they finally got to catch their queen in action here?
Well, I'm just so happy to meet you guys. I'm so happy to be on TikTok. And thank you for all of the kind comments, because you guys really have been very welcoming. And that's very refreshing. And I appreciate it very, very much.
Awesome. Well, hey, JaNee, on and everyone's commenting this also, but you're the best. Thanks for just being like a bright and light energy and a great person. I hear they're calling for you in the background
Hold on
too.
one
So
second. I have a baby crying hysterically, and I want to make sure she's not trying to go down the stairs somehow.
check that first. Check that first. Thanks everybody also for tuning in today. She's a legend. Just running around and I mean,
Can you just
imagine
hold her
that
for
she's
one more
there
second so I can think?
taking care of family at the same time.
Okay, just one second. I'll be right with you. Just one more minute. Sorry, everybody. That's my daughter.
Hey, you're doing the hardest job of anybody. All of us on this chat are just hanging. You're doing the hardest job that
So,
there is, taking care of a
well,
family.
it's been a pleasure. And hopefully we can, make some more stuff for you guys. And love you all so much. Thank you for, tuning in for our live little get together.
Thank you, JaNee, and thanks everybody.
Okay. All right. Bye,
Cool,
y'all.
perfect. More soon. Cheers, everybody.